What's happening? It's July 25th, 2024. It's the end of the day. Markets have been closed for 30 minutes. And this is the second day of a big sell-off that we have seen in the last 2 days. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit upon a couple charts, actually more than a couple. I'm going to start out with the two big indexes, S&P 500 and the QQQs, and then I'm going to work through some of the big Mag 7 stocks, hit upon the VIX and maybe a Bitcoin or two, and go from there. So let's get rocking. I'm going to see if I can share my screen here and make sure you guys can see it. Let's see here. All right, looks like you guys can see it. If you have questions or comments, please share them in the chat. I'd appreciate it. So let's get going. So this is the S&P 500, and you can see I have these dotted lines drawn here. And basically what that is where I think there's support, or those are alerts that if it breaks through those areas, that is a thing of concern for me. So if I'm looking at the S&P 500, it was down today 0.5% roughly. I'm looking at the SPY, just to let you know, which is the ETF for the S&P 500. If I go to yesterday, it was down 2.27%. So not as much as yesterday, but a continuation of selling. We had some hope in the early part of the day where it got as high as 547.46, and but it couldn't hold on to it, and so the sellers came in and sold off, and it closed down at 538. Got as low as 537. So I'm using round numbers here. I'm not putting decimals. So, but it's come down to close to a support area, an alert I have put on here at 437.92. If it breaks through there, then I'm thinking probably right around here. The green line is the 90 period moving average. I sometimes use that to get a better point of view. Green line's 90. The blue line there is 50. 20 is the yellow, and white is the 9. The 9 is crossing through the 20. This is a no-go in my opinion. This is something that concerns me, that we could continue to see this move down. Now, tomorrow is Friday. So you're thinking like selling periods of like 3 days. So if we went back to, for instance, the 17th of July, the 18th of July, and then again on the 19th, that's 3 days. We had a recovery day on that Monday, and that was the 22nd, and got jammed up between the 20 and the 9, didn't make it through the 9, and then that's when we had the last 2 days of selling. So I would not be surprised if we see continuation of this selling tomorrow, but maybe not as much. And maybe we recover a little bit and form some sort of pivot point. Only, tomorrow we'll find out. At the end of the day, we'll find out if I'm right about that. But I'm starting to think that we're going to potentially continue to see a move down towards this 90 period, which is right around $529. It's a big chunk. Next week, as a reminder, 30th and 31st, there is the Federal Reserve meeting, so there could be a chance that on Wednesday they announce a reduction in Fed funds rates, which I think would slingshot this market higher. But I do also look at that as that's not an agreement, but what's the word I'm looking for? Admittance that we are in a recession. If you go back and look at those kind of charts, you will see every time they've lowered rates, we have been basically designated as in a recession. So let's look at the Qs here. Clean this up a little so it isn't so confusing. And so the Qs, Also, like the S&P 500 today, it closed down below where it closed yesterday. Got as high as 467 and some change, but closed down at 458 and some change. So it closed lower. It opened at 463, so it closed below its high, which tells me momentum is still southern headed, so headed towards the south. And so where is support? Probably in this 458, 445 range, possibly. We could see a move down there and a bounce. I don't know, but right now it's below the 9. The 9 is severely passed through the 20, which is concerning. The green line on that one, this one is sometimes is the 50. If we see the 9 move through the 50, then I think we have a really good shot at this 200 period moving average, which this is not good for anybody because this is wealth being erased. And that is my biggest concern for people, is that all these plans people have in their 401ks and working towards retirement, these kind of events erase wealth and delay people's dreams and goals. And I think that's where you got to think smart and be risk managed. But what I'm looking at here, and something, just look at this, it is just basically bouncing off this going through the 9 back on the 16th of July. Man, that's my birthday. And that was that's not how I want to think of my 55th birthday, is the start of a downward trend in the stock market. But it is what it is. But you got to see a move above this 9. And I think you're just going to see a continuation of, down, up against the 9, down, up against the 9, until we get some sort of catalyst that will move this market to the highs. All right, let's start with Apple and check this out. Apple, again, closed lower today than it closed yesterday. It closed lower than it opened. It did make a move higher, like pretty much everything else, but it couldn't hold it and headed south. I do think you're going to probably see 208 as a support level potentially, which back on June 11th that was a big day, or a lot of volume, big move up, went sideways for a bit, and then made its move that we've experienced from July 1st to basically the 15th of July. But it is now trailing south of the 20, south of the 9, and is continuing that downward route towards the blue line here in this one. I really need to get better about making all my simple moving averages the same color on each one. That's the 50 is the blue. So we see a potential support at the 50. Then Microsoft would be next in line when it comes to market capitalization weighted on the S&P, and it had another selling day. So yesterday it sold off roughly 3.5%. Today it sold off 2.45%. So continuing that selling, probably maybe something to do with that relationship with CrowdStrike, the fact that people are still sitting in Atlanta airport. Unfortunately, I feel very bad for those people. They're stuck. And shows our vulnerability when we're so dependent on technology, but that's the way it is. It's the world we live in today. But a continuation downward since what was this? That's the 10th of July. Just continuing, move through the 9 back on the 11th of July, and is basically just following the 9 down. Like I said, a catalyst needs to move this stock to a catalyst of some positivity would move this stock higher, and really everything a little bit higher. Next in line is Nvidia here. Not as big a, it was down, 6.8% yesterday. Today it was down 1.72%. I'll check out SMCI in just a second. And it had a it looked like it was going to recover today if it had closed at its highs, but it didn't, and it closed below where it opened today. I have a support level at 110 here. It did penetrate that today, but closed above it. That's encouraging, but let's go back to the 9. It broke the 9 on the 16th, yeah, and has just basically bounced up against the 9 on the 22nd. Tried to break through it on the 23rd, but didn't, and it just kept going south. Do I think Nvidia, if I'm just looking at this, everything, my oscillators, MACD's negative, RSI's negative, it's below 50. I want it above 50 to show strength, and the slow stochastic looks like it's pointing south as well. So I honestly, I believe if it holds above 110 on Nvidia, then I'm encouraged, but I also want to see break through the 9, which is at 120 right now. But if it breaks through the 110, then I think right around 100 and 96 really is my bigger support level, is $96 and some change. So I don't know. Just looking at it from this point of view, this is a falling knife. Let it hit the ground before you try to pick it up, in my opinion. I'll get to SMCI in just 1 second here. Let's check out Meta. Meta, man, it's been strong for a while. You can see the big gap. Earnings event blew through them back in February. Basically, sort of moving sideways for a while. It's coming back. It filled this gap here, over here. I've got as my support level 443. So if we see a breakthrough that's not encouraging. Earnings come out on the 31st. So that's next Wednesday, and that's Fed Day as well. So right now I'm looking at this once again. It's just trailing below the 9. It just it's not moving higher. So I'd just be cautious. This is a wait and see kind of situation, in my opinion. The MAC RSI is at 34, not encouraging. MACD seems to be flattening out a little bit, but it's not like ridiculously, no, it's not flattening out. It's headed south. The slow stochastic still below, headed towards the 20 mark, which is negative. I'm not encouraged by this. So risk manage around this. Let's see here. Okay, let's throw up SMCI for you. Today or yesterday was down, 9% and some change. Today it was down 2.25. This is that yellow or orange line there is the 200. That's encouraging. That definitely could be support. But we just have to wait and see. If it breaks through the 200, then I'm thinking there's a lot of buyers down in this area around mid 200s range, which is a long way from here. But earnings come out on SMCI on the 6th, and I think that could be a leading indicator to what is to come for Nvidia. And some of these other, like Dell and Nvidia, or Dell and SMCI use GPUs from Nvidia. That could be an indicator of what, if they're not ordering enough, ordering it, Nvidia is not getting orders. If they're not selling big computers, then Nvidia doesn't get orders. So that could be telling. But right now, that's at the 200, below the 9. I'd want to see, before I got really excited about this, I would like to see a move above the 9 that give me, because you think about like going back to the April 18th through roughly, was it the 15th of July, it basically went sideways. See if I can blow this up a little bit. It basically went sideways, zigzagged around, and now it's getting down around sort of lows back, intraday lows on February 20th, intraday lows on the April 22nd, and then we had a move toward a bigger lower than those two previous lows, intraday lows. And we did close up from those lows, but we closed lower than the open today. Point is, 200 is the line in the sand. You cross this line, then you die. What was that? Robin Williams, Sudhaman saying back in the day when he did that comedy act. But anyhow, but I would watch this 200. If it goes below the 200, I would be like, okay, there's a long way to go between 200 and where buyers have been in the past. So be really careful. You could hedge it some way. You could put a trailing stop on it. But I wouldn't, I just go back to looking at where it's been since April or July 15th. It's just gone down. So you need this momentum to break higher and break these simple moving averages. Because you think about it, all these computer algorithms are basing a lot of decisions based on our decisions on simple moving averages. If we see a move higher above the 9, the 20, the 50, then those computers say, hey, that's time to start buying this. But right now we're just not seeing it. Their earnings come out on the 6th. So I just be cautionary in this. Does anybody have another position they would like me to check out? Let's check out Netflix. Since my kids told me Netflix is old school, they don't watch Netflix anymore. And since they are one of the bigger consumers of streaming video, I have to pay attention to that. They're more into Prime and HBO Max. So something to think about. Netflix, broke that 9 on the 10th of July and is just trailed downward. See if I can make this a little bit bigger, easier for you all to see. That MACD south, RSI is at 39, slow stochastic is at 17. Just really no reason to risk at this point. You just want, to find where it's going to make a pivot. If it's going to make a pivot or if it's going to make a foundation for which to build off of. That's what you're looking for. And right now, I don't see a pivot point here. I don't see a foundation yet. There's no big, bump above the 9, above the 20, nothing like that. So that's concerning. What else? Did I hit on Tesla? Is that Tesla? Yeah. So Tesla, of course, the earnings were not great, and their guidance was even not as great either. And so you had a drop on the 23rd to yesterday, the 24th. It dropped 12% and some change. Today, it did close up 1.97%, roughly just under 2%. Got as high as 226, as low as 216, but closed out at 220. This is resistance right now. I have that at 227.13. You got to see a break there. It's still, the 9 is still above the 20. And but I look at this and I go, he told you they're not selling cars. And if they're not selling cars, earnings and revenue don't go up. And I think this is just a representation of where the consumer is at this point, and where the economy is. And so we have to respect that. So these more high beta being a measurement of risk. If just to give you an example, beta, the S&P 500 has a beta of 1. Anything above a beta of 1 takes more risk. Anything below it takes less risk. So these stocks are all over a beta of 1 or taking more risk than the S&P 500. And so in this case, you're seeing, in my opinion, you're slowly seeing the drain of high Fed funds rates and interest rates on the economy. It's trickling into the system. And now you have a strain on the money supply. There's not as much money in the system. It's hard to borrow money. I know a lot of banks are tightening up recently because they're scared to death and they're having issues with commercial real estate. especially the regional and mid-size or large banks. And so, you can't, it's not as easy to go get a car loan for $80,000 for an electric car. It's costly to go to the grocery store. Those are kind of things you got to think about in your head when you look at the cycles that economies go through. Stock price doesn't really necessarily represent the not the fundamentals, but the why of the company. Tesla is an innovator, is a technology innovator. Will it be around for quite a while? I suspect it will. Will it change how we live in many different perspectives? Yeah, it probably will. But its stock price is not performing. And when you are betting or investing your monies into stocks for your dreams and goals, you got to take the account of, it's a stock. It could go up, and some guy on Wall Street who's got a $2-3 billion hedge fund can easily move that stock around. And so that's something we have to take in consideration. We invest in these things. IWM, that's a freaking Christmas tree of stuff. Let's clean this up a little bit. IWM is the Russell 2000, and so it. To me, this is where a lot of money flowed to starting on the 10th of July, and we had a pretty sizable ride up. The MACD still is positive, but is flattening out. The RSI is at 63, and the slow stochastic is at 77, which are all very positives. But you can see since the 16th of July to today, we are basically going, in a way, in a channel sideways. It looks like in this little green section represents buyers. This represents sellers. So there looks like there is support in this area. And this is maybe where money flows to as it flows out of your higher beta, higher volatility stocks and big cap stocks. And it flows downstream to the small cap guys where there is value and where you can pick up good prices on good innovative companies. So that's what I'm watching. I've got my alert at 218.05. So if we see a breakthrough that, we could see it higher. It did close above the 9. That's encouraging, but barely. It got as high today as 224, as low as 218, but closed out at 220. So it did close above its open, which is very positive. So hopefully we can see some positivity here and a break through 224, which means then we get up in towards this higher top end of the Bollinger Band at 228. And then I've got, looks like a wall of sell at roughly 240. So I see some potential opportunity in the Russell 2000 IWM, but I'd look for a break higher above that 224 mark, a close above it. You're looking for closes because that's confirmation in this. So that's my take there. Does anybody have any stocks they want me to touch on? Just put it in the chat if you want. And if not, I will call it a day and we'll pack it up and look forward tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday. And check us out at Best of US Investors. We have a 14-day free trial for our channel, and you get a whole lot of stuff. But check us out, and I really appreciate y'all jumping on here and showing your support. And if nobody's got any other stocks they want to hit upon, I will end it there. And looks like we're off to Beer 30. All right, you guys take care. Live loud. Peace.